realistically, I want to draft teams that could potentially meet in the Super Bowl to maximize everything. So like an AFC stack, an NFC stack, but I also need to have teams that play in the first round too, right?
Congratulations, you are better than 75% of people drafting this contest.
Yes.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience presented by Underdog. It is time for you to learn the strategy for the NFL playoff best ball drafts on Underdog, because it's not as simple as just taking the 10 best guys for your team. That's not going to work exactly. So we brought on Nez from the Badge Bros to break down the strategy. We'll go through pairs of rankings. We're going to do a draft, and then we're going to recap the draft to see where I went wrong with my terrible teams. But I need to know more about this. You need to know more about this. And the great thing is the big gauntlet contest right now on Underdog, it's starting to approach full. It's 64% full as of the time of this recording. But $25 per entry, $200,000 to first place. And it's pretty good. You're going to have to beat a lot of people in order to do that, but I could use 200K. I'm sure you could use 200K. The only guaranteed money I can promise you is if you use code Mayo right now in order to sign up for Underdog and you play yourself an entry, you do yourself a draft, you will get a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. I've been highly recommending anyone who's dipping their toe into the waters of Underdog to take advantage of this deposit bonus right now, because you can basically draft all of your teams with the deposit bonus money, and then you have all the leftover money to play your pick'ems, do more drafts, whatever you deem fit with the money that you deposit in the first place. You just keep that to the side. Use all the bonus money to draft these teams, and we're going to tell you how. Plus, there might be more PGA best ball drafts coming towards the end if drafting is your jam. Nez from the Badge Bros on the line with me. Do I have that covered? Are there any other tournaments beside the big gauntlet that you like?
Yeah, I mean, they have other small contests in there too. If $25 is maybe a little too steep for you, they got mittens in there as well, the small version of the gauntlet there, $5 to enter. Some different advanced structures too. We'll get into that advanced stuff here in a second, but a lot of different ways to get your money in the NFL playoffs, and of course all the other sports as well, if that's your jam. We cover that over on the Badge Bros as well. But Gauntlet is super fun, and there's a lot of edge here. I'm about to make you an expert in like 5 minutes.
That's what I need to know. Make me an expert in 5 minutes. What am I supposed to be doing? So here's what I gleaned, because Davis was on, and he was telling me about it, but I'm not always sure Davis knows what he's talking about sometimes. I'm sure he's probably locked into this, but realistically, I want to draft teams that could potentially meet in the Super Bowl to maximize everything. So like an AFC stack, an NFC stack, but I also need to have teams that play in the first round too, right?
Congratulations, you are better than 75% of people drafting this contest.
Yes.
It's really that simple. The fun part is figuring out what combinations you were trying to take to the Super Bowl. You know, we have these bye weeks now, and the wild card weekend is round one. So if you think the Chiefs are a lock for the Super Bowl, you can draft a lot of Chiefs, but you need to figure out how you're bringing the Chiefs to the Super Bowl past round one. So that's just one of the interesting wrinkles of this contest, is these one seeds are really hard to advance.
So would you recommend, not like if for first round picks in this, when you're starting out your stacks, would you try to stack up the Lions or Chiefs knowing that they're the one seed? Now, obviously they're the two favorites to get to the Super Bowl right now per the odds. Like, is there value on them, or do people still take them really highly because they don't know what they're doing? Because I found that happened a lot in PGA drafts, and even some of the best ball drafts that I did before NFL season was you would get three sharp people who know what they're doing versus three people who don't really know what they're doing. And the three people who don't know what they're doing are all taking the guys that everyone else would be waiting for. And then it just kind of screws everything up.
Yeah, it's really interesting because if you have novices, let's just call them, in these drafts, you actually don't want people who don't know what they're doing in here, because they're going to be taking everybody's stacks. Like, everybody is building for the Super Bowl that knows what they're doing. So you are eventually going to have people that have never drafted gauntlets before coming in and, oh, Patrick Mahomes is here and I have 3 AFC players. Let me take Patrick Mahomes, just for an example. And you really shouldn't do that. You should be, taking your, the ones that brought you through first round, or, to the second round and into the Super Bowl if you're doing this correctly. So you do tend to see that. It's funny when you get in these drafts, there are a lot of like interesting dynamics that make certain teams hard to draft and hard to build, and a lot of pairings for the Super Bowl really difficult to get through. But that doesn't necessarily mean the juice is not worth the squeeze.
Who have you found to be the most difficult people to stack up in that sense?
Yeah, the Eagles are one of the hardest teams to stack right now. Everybody loves Saquon, as they should. Everybody loves Jalen Hurts. So a Jalen Hurts Saquon pairing is really, really tough. And even if you do get that Jalen Hurts Saquon pairing, Devontae Smith goes really early in these drafts. And then the AFC pairings for these Eagles teams are really thin because you have the Ravens and the Bills, two favorites in the AFC right now. And those teams are pretty much just QB merchants, right? Josh Allen is just single handedly carrying that team through everything right now in the season. Same with the Ravens, right? It's mostly either Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson. And with Derrick Henry, he's a first round pick in these drafts. And when you have Lamar, you can only use one quarterback when you get to the finals. So, like I said, in this example, we have Jalen Hurts. Now you're taking on the pass catchers for the Ravens, and it's a really difficult task to build these Eagles teams because they are so concentrated and every piece goes so early.
So I can see that. So because you can only use one of your quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, obviously it would be optimal to have two quarterbacks in the Super Bowl and you take the best score that ends up coming from the game. But do you kind of lean the other way with it as well, where as long as you can get one of your stacks to the final, that allows you that maybe you take one of the favorites in one of the conferences and then maybe one of the underdogs in the other side that you think that can advance, and then try to sprinkle in some teams that are guaranteed to get you second. And I mean, no one's guaranteed to get you a third round at this point, but guaranteed to get you second. Like that's where you pick off. Like eventually you're going to have non-correlated players, right? Like you can't just completely stack up two teams. So like, do you start picking off like in the last rounds, Juju, even if you don't have any Chiefs, just so you might have some Chiefs on your team that are guaranteed to be there? Or is that not optimal at all?
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially for a team like the Chiefs, where so much gets spread around. Like last year, in this contest, the Chiefs made the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl, and Mecole Hardman was a guy you had to have, and he was not drafted very often. So a guy like Juju is a perfect example of somebody that is not drafted a lot, but could be that decision maker because and last year again, another example, we saw people share first place. So if you have that unique piece that nobody else has, and they end up scoring a touchdown and being an optimal piece in the finals, you could have first place all to yourself. And when it comes to, building Chiefs, choosing them as an example, once again, you have to have that second QB. I mean, you try your hardest to get a single Mahomes team through and not get quarterback points. I would consider that extremely unlikely to make it past the first round without a QB. So for teams like the Lions and the Chiefs, you absolutely have to have that second quarterback. But if you're building out, Bills or Ravens, I would say putting a second QB on that team is suboptimal for the reasons that you stated. Getting yourself a one-off piece is much more advantageous.
Yeah, because I think that so much of this would have to just looking at the rules, looking at the structure of the tournament where you have to get out of Super Wildcard Weekend in order to advance, that it's not that you need to optimize for Super Wildcard Weekend. It's that you do need to structure your team as strongly as possible for that week, because even if you have the best team in round 3, you might not get to round 3 because you didn't get out of round 1.
Exactly. And there's a lot of really fun matchups in round 1 that I've been identifying to try to get these bye week teams through. For example, this Commanders Bucks game has a 50-point total right now, highest one for Wild Card Weekend. And man, these pieces on both of these teams are very affordable, and it's totally fine to. I mean, you're going to have some guys that are casualties along the way, expecting some of these guys in the wreckage, but they can really help you advance and get through past these beginning rounds. And that game is just one that I love. Obviously, we all love Mike Evans, 1,000-yard receiver this season. Very, very awesome achievement for him, and he is very affordable for drafts and putting him on teams to help you get through.
How much have you seen? I assume you've done drafts last night and this morning to see how people are drafting now that we know what the games are, what the seeds are going to be. Because I bet you those teams look a lot different than maybe what you would have saw 2 weeks ago. How many dead teams are in this tournament because they took Colts on their team or they took Seahawks or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I mean, you have dead teams in a lot of different ways, right? One, like you mentioned, these playoff teams that did not make it. I'd say the field was pretty sharp as far as identifying who was going to make the playoffs. There were some Falcons drafters out there, but for the most part, those teams are alive. Where you see the dead teams are people not drafting 5 live players for the Super Bowl. It's amazing how many times you will see teams just dead on arrival as far as being able to field a competent finals team. Now, a lot of these teams are getting weeded out by the time you get to the finals, but just DOA, I mean, honestly, and this is probably like putting it conservatively, I would say like 20% of teams are just dead on arrival. Like as soon as the draft is done, these teams have no chance of winning first. So it's considered among the drafters one of the softest contests or one of the biggest edges left in these draft streets.
Well, let's get into some rankings for the teams. But first, once again, code Mayo at Underdog will get you that deposit bonus of up to $1,000. That's my edge. Use the bonus money to draft, and then you have money left over. Like, why are you passing up on free money? Get in with code Mayo right now. What teams do you like to target the most in drafts right now? If we were to rank it out, because we want to have an AFC side and an NFC side, what would be your best combinations?
Yeah, so it's tough to get through, but I think the Chiefs are an awesome team to build around because they have Pat Mahomes, spreads it around. You can easily find four Chiefs players at reasonable ADPs or average draft position in these contests to then, take to the Super Bowl. And then after you have your four Chiefs, all you need is one other opponent to field a full roster when you get to the Gauntlet Finals. You do have to, get those players through the first round. But like I said, there are cheap players in these contests that are in really high scoring games. The Rams, for example, are a great option to help get your team through the first round. They might even beat the Vikings, and now you are scoring points in the second round to help you get through. So I think the Chiefs right now are very comfortable because Mahomes, you can get Mahomes in the second round in most drafts, which I just think is crazy, right? We're talking about Patrick Mahomes here, talking about the Chiefs that are probably the best that they've looked all season with having Hollywood Brown back and Xavier Worthy looking into form. It's really easy to just get your Chiefs players and then find a way to get them through at the moment. Along with the Ravens, I think the Ravens are also super fun to build around. With once you get Lamar Jackson, people tend to leave the Ravens pass catchers alone. So you can kind of push it a little bit and then, take your late Zay Flowers or your later Mark Andrews because people don't have Lamar. So they're less likely to take those pass catchers.
In terms of ADP, what's the top of the board looking like? If I'm sitting there with the first pick, like how do the first two rounds generally go?
Yeah, so pick one is Josh Allen. Almost every single draft starts with Josh Allen. You're getting points in the first round, and you're getting, a team that could easily make its way to the Super Bowl. So people love building around Bills, and the Bills pass catchers on top of that are pretty cheap. The problem is Josh Allen and James Cook in this day and age, now that we have the table has been set, it's really hard to pair Josh Allen and James Cook. Pick two, Lamar Jackson almost every time. It's the same dynamics as Josh Allen. Lamar is a great quarterback, scores a ton of points. He's scoring in the first round. You're really likely to get out of the first round if you start with either Josh Allen or Lamar. After this is where you see, a little bit of differences. A lot of the times it's an Eagle, usually Jalen Hurts, but can be Saquon and tentatively Gibbs. So this is typically where you see the first NFC player off the board, usually three in a row with Hurts, Saquon, and Gibbs. And then after that, it really is sort of, the Wild West. You'll see sometimes Justin Jefferson get pulled up at this 1-2 turn. You'll see Mahomes get pulled up at this 1-2 turn. But a lot of the times the dynamic is get obviously, your first round. And then in the second round, it's either people drafting teammates or people drafting Super Bowl opponents. So one of the things I like to do is, if I get my Jalen Hurts team, is do like a James Cook and say, okay, I'm playing Eagles, Bills, Super Bowl. And then on the way back in the third round, I'm going to try to get Devontae Smith. And then I will eventually, when I finish this draft, get two more Bills pass catchers to give me five players in the Super Bowl. But those are the, definitive top picks in the first round.
So let's just theoretically draft through that team. So if you're going to be doing that, that means you could probably pick up Dallas Goedert a little bit later on as well to add to your Eagles side. And then you could probably end up getting like Mac Hollins or Dalton Kincaid, whoever it might be from the Bills side. And it does seem like at that point you're actively taking away from those Josh Allen teams too. Like you're kind of helping yourself with the Bills and boxing out the Josh Allen player that, hey, you need your team from the NFC to get there, obviously, being the Eagles. But if it is Eagles-Bills, a lot of teams that you've already boxed out with Josh Allen just wouldn't be there.
You are hamstringing that Josh Allen team for sure, which is just like a byproduct. We're never like purposefully out here trying to like make a team worse. It's always trying to build the best Super Bowl team that we can. But absolutely, and in this Eagles Bills example, I think Keon Coleman is an awesome pick here. We see Keon Coleman make splash plays all the time during the season, and I think you can see him in the playoffs. Be leaned on a little bit harder. We saw this, in years past with Gabe Davis, just out of nowhere. He had this explosion game in the playoffs. And Keon Coleman to me is like a very specific archetype of receiver where he is just that deep ball, big play guy. And he goes really cheap. And I think it's because, for the most part, when drafts were taking place at the beginning of Gauntlet, when it first opened, Keon Coleman was hurt. So his ADP, there's just this anchoring bias to what ADP was whenever the contest first opened. And people are not really pushing up Keon Coleman, so he's a really nice way to kind of build out those secondary Bills pieces if you are going NFC quarterback James Cook.
Okay, so with the 7 teams on each side, it seems like you like the Chiefs, then the Bills, then the Ravens. Those are the 3 stud teams in the AFC. No shocker, they're the three top seeds. Is there another AFC offense that you would like to go to? Like, if people are building out with the Bills, actually, it wouldn't work. Like, do you have to think about seeding as it comes down to this? Like, let's say you wanted to build out Broncos.
It's a good question.
Like, do the Broncos have, I mean, the Steelers feel like they have no value. It feels like the Texans probably have no value, maybe in round 1 to do something. But if either of those teams did stage an upset, all of us, like, you have to draft some of these players, don't you?
You absolutely, and they for the most part are just players to help me advance. Now, if you want to be bold and say I'm going to build a Steelers Super Bowl matchup, you're probably going to be one of the only people with a Steelers Super Bowl if that happens. And same with the Texans, but I'm not doing that. I'm not using my entry fees on this on those possibilities. But you do have strong equity if those Super Bowls actually take place. But the AFC to me is a 3-horse race. But if you were to throw in a 4th hat in the ring, I would definitely say the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert, one of the best QBs in the league, can definitely see him kind of take over. Paired with the fact that they do have it's a pretty strong defense. It's been limited in the past few weeks here, but I think the Chargers, if you were to look for a wild card, a true wild card AFC teams, I would go Chargers. They are really easy to draft. Nobody takes these players. I think they're awesome advance rate pieces because I think that they're going to win their first round game, but I think they have a sneaky chance of getting to at least the conference championship, which does hold value, right? I think if we were to get like super in the weeds here, you would like to have at least as many teams as players as possible when you're in those conference finals to get yourself into the finals of the gauntlet. And then from there, you just hope you have 5 players.
So would it make sense? Let's say everything plays to chalk in the AFC. You said that you like Chiefs. Would you pair them up with the Chargers, knowing that the Chargers would play the Chiefs in the second round, that you're kind of overstacking that game, knowing that you advance at least one of those sides to the conference championship?
I don't think it's a bad idea. Ideally, I would be drafting either Ravens or Bills to go with those Chiefs to, have that conference championship matchup. But those pieces are really hard to get to, right? Those are very sought after teams. Those are the chalk teams in the AFC. So I am okay doing Chargers with Chiefs. It's not my favorite.
Okay, let's say this.
Go ahead.
Let's say this. Like, if it's the Chargers that you think is like the third option for you here, like you have your 2 stud teams, then you have the Chargers. You would feel more comfortable pairing them up with the Ravens or Bills outside of the Chiefs, knowing that that would be the matchup most of the time on paper, those 2 teams playing each other.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So if I was doing, a Chargers Super Bowl team and I needed some advance rate pieces to help me get to the finals, like you said, Ravens, Bills, makes a lot of sense to have those teams meet up in the finals and then help you get there. And then from there, you have, essentially your pick of the litter from the NFC, because chances are you were building out that NFC team first, and then you backstack those Chargers because the Chargers are not expensive pieces in this contest whatsoever.
In the NFC, am I crazy just to say, hey, I just want a bunch of Buccaneers?
I don't think you're crazy. I think the Buccaneers are kind of awesome, and you can get a lot of them, right? I mean, and they're pretty concentrated offense, right? We know it's Baker, Bucky, Evans, and McMillions there. They're a really fun team. They just have to, it's a tough road to get there, right? They need to defeat the Washington Commanders,
which they've done already this year, and then they'd have to play the Eagles and beat the Eagles like they already have this year and did in the playoffs last year, and then they'd have to play the Lions, who they've already beat this year.
I mean, you just gave yourself a hell of a path there to get, and you can build them with any AFC team you want, really.
Yeah, for sure. Like they would be. I think like if you couldn't get Lions, like the Lions do feel like the safest bet to me. But I do know that anyone who plays the Lions unless you're Minnesota on Sunday Night Football, are probably going to give up a ton of points. And you get those games indoors if you end up playing with the Lions. So I mean that's the big advantage to the Lions right now is outside of the first round matchup, Minnesota at the Rams and Chargers at Houston. Like Detroit's probably the only inside game you're going to see this entire time.
Yeah, I love Detroit, right? It's hard not to love Detroit. They have so much personality, so many fun players on their team. The problem is that they're expensive. It doesn't mean the juice isn't worth the squeeze, though. You can go out here and you're probably going to get burned a couple times, more than a couple times. If you're starting off like, okay, I got my Jahmyr Gibbs team. Next thing you know, Goff is off the board, Amon-Ra's off the board, and now you're like, well, okay, I got to grab Jameson Williams if I want to play Lions Super Bowl. Okay, what AFC team is left? And now you are forced to build Chargers because Mahomes is gone, Josh Allen is gone, Lamar is gone, and you need a quarterback. And you don't have that Lions quarterback, obviously, in this example. And what you're going to see is Goff goes pretty early. So now you are building Chargers. So that's what's like really frustrating is like, love the Lions. I want to have a lot of Lions teams. It's really tough to build a Lions team that isn't Lions Chargers right now.
Is it possible to get Gibbs and Goff based on the ADP?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can start off Gibbs Goff for sure.
I mean, we're going to do a draft here in a second. That's how I would like to start if possible. Get Gibbs, then get Goff, and then maybe add on a Laporta or a Tim Patrick later on, maybe someone else down the list, and then try to see what we're left with. Obviously, we'd probably need a few Tampa players, but you say they're cheap. I feel like Tampa, Chargers, Detroit, if we could do that build, would be the way I'd want to go.
I love the idea of reverse engineering teams, and that's like a perfect team to reverse engineer. We make the Lions our priority, then we go Bucks because Bucks are more expensive than Chargers, and then you get Chargers on top of it, and you're gonna have like one of the better teams already in the gauntlet. Like I think hopefully we can get to see some teams in this lobby that are just an example of unfortunately just dead on arrival because they cannot field a Super Bowl team. It happens way more often than you would think.
All right. I want to remind everyone to smash the like to this channel, sub to Mayo Media Network, and sub to the Badge Bros on YouTube as well, where you can get more in-depth coverage on NFL best ball and best ball in general, all the Underdog product over there. But I will see you on the other side doing a draft right after this. The TGL, presented by SoFi, is golf's newest league. It's all indoors in an arena with high-tech meeting. High stakes meets prime time on ESPN. It's the 3-on-3 match play golf league that takes the competition of pro golf and places it inside the arena atmosphere. 6 teams featuring the PGA Tour's best players go head-to-head every single week. And we're talking players that get mic'd up, shot clocks, refs, never before seen holes, a moving green, the playoffs, the lights, the camera, all of the action all goes down. The first of its kind arena golf league in Florida. And yes, you can bet on the TGL, which is the greatest part about this entire thing. You can stream it live on ESPN. So, what you need to do is tune in Mondays and Tuesdays on ESPN in January, find out the right odds, get a feel for how this is going to work, and go win some money. Remember, it's only on ESPN and ESPN Plus. This is TGL presented by SoFi. Keep up is golf. Okay, we're in the Underdog lobby right now, and you might be too if you use code MAYO at Underdog to get that deposit bonus. We're going to snap do this. We're going to enter the draft right now. I don't want to allow notifications. I'm not a big notification guy. We have the wrap pick at the end. We are picking 1-6. There are 6 teams per pod. We need to advance out of the first round, so we have the first pick. So we're not going to get Gibbs, essentially.
I would say Gibbs is a bit of a long shot. However, based on what we're trying to do, I think we can still, if you still want to do this Lions team,
we could go Goff, Amon-Ra.
We can go Goff, Amon-Ra because we want to do Chargers. So we'll have I think Dobbins is probably going to be like your preference at running back, unless you are really into Hassan Haskins right now. I think that J.K. Dobbins is going to be our RB1. So I mean, it sets up perfectly, right? We have no problem missing on Gibbs here.
So we start this draft in 18 seconds. If you're listening to the audio version of the show, just jump over to YouTube. You can see the draft in real time as we do it through. In terms of quarterbacks, in terms of players that we have to play, how many running backs do we need to have starting for us in order to accrue points? Is it just 1 or is it 2?
It is just 1. So it's 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receiver tight ends. Those are one position in this contest, and then 1 flex position. So we're only starting 5 players in the Super Bowl or in any given round.
And the flex can be anyone besides a quarterback?
Exactly.
Okay, so we're on
And
the clock.
it's half point PPR as well.
And it's half point, and you've hit on it. Lamar go 1-2 in this draft. Hurts goes 3. Maybe they'll save us Gibbs. I have my doubts because Gibbs is next.
You never know.
Well, Barkley, Henry,
I
and
would doubt
Gibbs
it.
are the next 3 up in terms of the board. So maybe someone wants to try a different stack and grab Mahomes. But since this guy, Mahomes goes, there it is. So maybe we get Gibbs. Do we pivot here and take Barkley, or do we stick with the plan of taking the Detroit guys regardless of whether Gibbs goes or not?
Barkley is definitely interesting. If you like the Chargers, it's just a matter of what we like the most here. So if we go Barkley,
Gibbs
we
went.
could go Barkley. We could go Barkley, AJ Brown, and like if you want to go Eagles, Chargers, I think that's probably a fun pivot. Doing Goff, Amon-Ra?
I think we need to get our quarterback for the Super Bowl so that like I would feel the best about Goff. So let's take Goff.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we'll take Amon-Ra.
Yeah.
Because he would be gone by our next pick anyway. So is 6 the worst draft position here?
It's not ideal. I love getting Josh Allen to start, but like you do get an idea of what other drafters are doing. So it's kind of nice to have a lot of information by the time you make that first pick. The tough part is we have drafters in here that are, what did this guy do? He took Gibbs and Henry at the player next to us. So like he's in trouble. Like he doesn't have Goff. He doesn't have Lamar Jackson. So like we don't really know what these guys are going to do. It's tough when you get these wild card drafters in here because they're just drafting players they like. They're not thinking about trying to win $200,000 in the Super Bowl, which is like kind of ironic.
Well, you know what? It's beneficial to us that we're playing against some of these guys, even if they might steal a pick or two. So to take a look at what's going on right now, the Lamar team has selected Mark Andrews to go with them. The Jalen Hurts team has gotten A.J. Brown to go with him. As you said, the Barkley team has Gibbs and... it's Gibbs and Henry on a team and Mahomes and Barkley on the other team. Now, we're coming up here soon with more picks coming off the board. We've just seen Justin Jefferson, after Mark Andrews, Jefferson, Cook, and Devonta Smith go. We're up in 4 picks time. Do we want to potentially take another Lion, or do we want to start diversifying right now?
I do like the idea of taking another Lion. If we are confident that, or we know that we want to use the Chargers as our AFC pairing, and we want to take Buccaneers to help us get through here, I think we could do something like Jameson Williams, Mike Evans, and then know that we can get some Chargers pieces on the way back.
Okay, so we could go with Jameson Williams, or we could punt that and use Laporta. And do you like Bucky Irving more or Mike Evans more? Because we don't have a running back.
That's true.
To ensure that we get one of those guys. Because I'd much rather have Bucky Irving right now than we're on the clock. Jameson Williams just went, so that made our decision for us. So we should probably take Sam Laporta, right?
Yep. Yeah, I would take Laporta here. And then I like the idea of Bucky Irving, right? Just having a Buccaneer. I think Bucky or Evans are equally as valuable to us on this team right now.
And right now, I mean, Bucky and we might be able to get Evans on the wrap. Like if we take Evans, do you think that would make people pass on Baker or no?
They would definitely pass on Baker, but I think Bucky is a hot commodity. People are looking for ways to advance past his first round. Bucky is sitting down there low in ADP, but people know how valuable he is to getting these teams through the first round.
Okay, so we've gone Laporta and Bucky Irving, but we probably would have went Jameson Williams and Bucky Irving if it wasn't the case that Williams was taken just before us. So after us, Josh Jacobs has gone and Xavier Worthy is gone. Now, again, I like the Buccaneers in this spot, mainly because I think the Buccaneers have a chance to make a run. They could easily lose to Washington in the first round. I'm not going to deny that. But even like if you want to stack up the Rams, thinking they could beat up on the Vikings or the Vikings beat up on the Rams, like those two teams presumably would more than likely have to play Detroit in the second round. If things go chalk, we do see upsets happen, but that's probably the end of the line for those teams, especially the Rams.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I think is like interesting when looking at the NFC side is I strongly prefer building out NFC teams because of the fact that the running backs are priced very affordably. Like we see Aaron Jones here in the 4th round. Kyron Williams is still on the board. If you like the Packers, Josh Jacobs is there. So these, they're a bit of a long shot in the NFC side, but I think you can build like the strongest teams that the rooms will let you build is through these, Vikings, Packers, these non-Lions Eagles teams. They're not obviously super live to make the Super Bowl, but you can build awesome teams with these players based on the way that they're priced in these rooms and what kind of teams you can build in the Super Bowl if those things take place. And I don't think it's a long shot for these non-Lions Eagles teams to get there, but people aren't excited to take them.
So we're coming up in 1 pick. Mike Evans is still on the board. I believe. No, maybe he was gone. Is Evans?
He's still there.
He's still there. So do we do Evans and Baker?
So I wouldn't. Yeah, we do need a quarterback, huh?
Well, here's the thing. We have Goff.
Yeah, but we need a quarterback for round 1.
Herbert? Do we just take the Bucks, hope they advance, and be on our way, or do we? I'm going to take Evans with this pick.
Let's for sure go Evans. Is Herbert on the board?
Herbert is on the board, I believe. Herbert is Justin Herbert's still there.
He should be there late for us.
Okay, so let's
now
see.
we can potentially look at Ladd. I would take Ladd actually.
Okay, I like this. So we can take Ladd in this spot and maybe we can end up getting it. So we're setting ourselves up. So we have 3 Detroit players, 2 Bucks players, and 1 Charger through the rounds. Jaden Daniels just went off the board. I mean, the Washington side of this is probably pretty enticing too. But the problem,
Absolutely.
I would say the problem with the Washington side is outside of Daniels and McLaurin, now that Eckler is back and Brian Robinson still splits, and God knows they might use McNichols from time to time. Which Brown is it going to be if Noah Brown ends up coming back on top? Zacchaeus has made plays. It's Ertz. Like, it's really just Jaden Daniels scoring all these points. He would actually
it is tough.
He would be kind of like a great first round to get you through quarterback.
Jaden Daniels is an awesome advanced rate quarterback piece because that game 50-point total. If you are building, like if we weren't building Bucks here, I would definitely say let's take Jaden Daniels and just score 40 points in the first round and get this Detroit team too. But we're gonna find a different way to do this. So yeah, let's get Herbert in the queue, and then J.K. Dobbins is another piece that we kind of have to have. We really want that AFC running back to pair with this Detroit team. This is a really nice team, man. I'm excited about this. Hopefully we can come through with these 2 Chargers.
So, I mean, this one team is just stacking up all Ravens. They just took Bateman and Aguilar. Someone snaked Bateman from them, so they were forced to go Aguilar. Dobbins just came off the board.
So this definitely is not a fun proposition for us. I'm going to suggest that we still go Herbert.
Okay. And take Quentin Johnson.
We might need to pivot.
Oh, Herbert just went.
Okay, what quarterbacks do we have left? So we're building out Lions Super Bowl.
Yeah, we got Baker.
We have Baker. I think we go Baker. We're going to play Lions Super Bowl. And then I think that we take like a dusty Chiefs running back and then build out Lions Chiefs Super Bowl. And then it's threading a needle, and I know it's scary, but I would go Kareem Hunt or Samaje. Like, you just kind of have to take what the field gives you, and the field gave us a pretty crap draw.
All right, so we have 15 seconds. Do you like that more than Mixon?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the Texans have no shot.
Okay, so we'll get Kareem Hunt.
So this is definitely risky, right? We're going to leave ourselves likely with only 5 players in the first round. But the good thing about doing this is, like, one, a lot of people are scared to do Lions and Chiefs. It's hard to do, and it's scary. Like, oh, how can I possibly get this team through round 1? Well, the good part is that 33% of the field advances through round 1. So it's when you should really be taking the most risk. So if we just give ourselves 5 starters for round 1 and we are taking them from a high scoring environment, we're definitely live to get through. And now you're one of the few teams that are actually building out Chiefs and Lions. And unfortunately, it's just something that we had to do because, we saw these Chargers get pulled up. You just have to, think quick on your feet.
So should we still try to get a Quentin Johnson and continue with the Chargers down this road to make sure that because right now we have Evans, Bucky, Baker, and Ladd in the first round. Like, we still need someone in the first round to fill out our team.
Yeah, so we have 2 picks left here, and you have Patrick and...
Just screw it, Jalen McMillan, or just take best available first round guy?
I definitely think Tim Patrick, because we need 5 players, right? That would give us Goff, Hunt, Amon-Ra, Laporta, and then Tim Patrick. That would be our 5 for that Lions Chiefs Super Bowl. And then I like McMillan because, I think that if we say, that Baker Mayfield is going off round 1, they win, and now we have a full Baker stack in round 2. Maybe they upset the Eagles or Packers, and now we have that full team in the conference championship as well. I think going McMillan and Tim Patrick is the move here.
All right, McMillan and Tim Patrick are our final 2 picks. That was devastating not being able to get J.K. or Herbert or Dobbins. That really screwed everything up.
It really did throw a wrench into it, but it's not the worst thing in the world to pivot to the 2 number 1 seeds, I suppose. Even if it is, getting Kareem Hunt on there isn't super exciting, but Pacheco has, clearly not been fully healthy. I don't think it's crazy to take Kareem Hunt there if you're trying to build Lions Chiefs. You almost have to a lot of the time.
Well, the other out that we do have with this is if it's Tampa Bay, Kansas City in the Super Bowl, we'd still have 5 guys.
Exactly. So you really did set yourself up well.
And in that circumstance, if we got Bucks Chargers, that would also work out for us because we would have Lad McConkey as a receiver on the other side, yet still retain our running back in Bucky Irving.
You basically have 4 different Super Bowls that you're live for.
That's probably what we want to do the most, right? Just try to flesh that out as much as possible.
Exactly. I mean, you really nailed it on your first draft there. I'm actually super impressed.
Well, there we go. I had a good coach. Hopefully everyone is able to glean what you were, unless you're lying to me and like these are terrible teams.
No, absolutely not. No, that was really solid. I mean, that's what's tough about these is that like if you are going for strong teams like building out Lions, a lot of the times you're going to have a lot of reps in these contests to build out the best possible teams that you're trying to, but the juice can be worth the squeeze. I mean, we're talking about 200K the first place here, but if you're somebody that's only drafting a handful and you want to make sure that you're drafting live teams, then maybe take long shots. But if you think that the Lions are the team and you're taking advantage of that deposit bonus, fire away and try to build the best possible Lions teams that you can.
So here we are. Let's review the draft, and we can point to the spot where we went wrong. So to review the first round, we picked 6th. Went Allen, Lamar, Hurts, Mahomes, Gibbs, and Jared Goff. Again, you can find this all on the screen on the Mayo Media Network video channel. I'll even make it bigger on the screen for people so they can see it a little bit better. So those are the 6 that go. We take Goff, and then we swing around with Amon-Ra, but we really wanted to get Goff and Gibbs, right?
Yeah, that was our plan. And that kind of screwed things up because you see how, running backs fly off the board and you can really have to pivot in real time if your running back gets sniped from your potential Super Bowl matchup.
So it does feel to me like if we wanted to implement the same strategy, but we had pick 4, that would have been ideal for us.
Yeah, we definitely would have had like squatters' rights on those players that we were going for.
Yeah, unless we got snaked on Goff on the wrap, which, maybe 5th would have been better on that, but then you'd risk losing Gibbs in that scenario. So we go Amon-Ra, then it goes Henry, Barkley, Brown, Andrews. And we start scrolling through these teams. So let's just take a look at each team individually a little bit. So we have our team. Obviously, we've been through that. We wish we would have got Herbert in the spot where we had to take McConkey, but he ends up in the spot where we took Baker because Justin Herbert goes 1 pick before that. If Herbert makes it to us, I feel like our team is stacked with at least the right way to draft.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been ideal what we were going for. But like I said, I think the pivot that we made was really sharp.
Well, we had to do something in real time. We'll see if it's the right one or the wrong one. So team 1 who drafted Josh Allen, they ended up with Josh Allen, James Cook, Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman, and Ty Johnson as their guys to run through. So their 5 Bills are those 5. They also have Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, and so they have 2 Vikings. They have 1 Texan in Nico Collins, and they have David Montgomery at running back. So what do you make of a team like that?
I think that's a pretty sharp team. They've got their Bills team, their Bills lineup there filled out, where at that point, all they need is like 1 additional NFC piece to then have 5 players for the Super Bowl, or in their case, they had a couple more. They drafted their best Vikings players that they could. There's a Vikings-Bills Super Bowl. The David Montgomery pick I like because now they are set up for a Bills-Lions Super Bowl. If that takes place, they have Montgomery to be that 5th piece, opposite side of those Bills pieces. So doing like 4 players from one team and then setting yourself up to then only need 1 player from the opposite conference, I think is a pretty sharp way to go about it.
Would you hesitate on drafting David Montgomery not knowing his injury status yet? Like, would Craig Reynolds have made sense for us?
I think Montgomery might come back.
I do
They've
too.
seen,
But
yeah.
what if he doesn't?
Yeah, if he doesn't, then Craig Reynolds, it feels really thin, but we've seen crazier things happen in these Super Bowls where these guys come out of nowhere, and all you really need is a touchdown, and now you just increased your payout by tens of thousands of dollars.
The other way I would swing this too, with the team that we drafted, should David Montgomery have been on our radar?
Definitely could have been, but I think we needed Evans and Ladd before we needed Montgomery. Um, Montgomery definitely would have been on our radar though, for sure, to give us that Lions running back that we needed, just that Super Bowl running back that we needed. We probably would have been able to forego Kareem Hunt, but we ended up going with Ladd, thinking that we could set up a supercharger stack instead.
Team 2 was the team that drafted Lamar in the first round. So they went Lamar, Andrews, Aguilar, and that's it from Baltimore. On the other side, they took Devonta Smith and Puka and Kyron and Cooper Kupp and Stafford. So they actually had a Ram stack, but with Lamar as the go-to at the beginning. They also took Tyler Higbee. So they have 5 Rams, 3 Ravens, and 1 Eagle, it looks like.
Yeah,
And
they
you
went
know
kind of
what?
an interesting
6.
route.
They used Ronnie Rivers as their last pick too. So they have 6 Rams.
Yeah, so they were trying to do something with the Eagles there with that Devontae Smith pick, unless that was an auto pick. I believe they took, that Devontae Smith pick definitely is a little strange because if when you start off Lamar, like Saquon's gone, so you don't have a running back for that Ravens Eagles Super Bowl unless you do Justice Hill. So I think that Devontae Smith pick might have been an auto. Or they timed out.
It's strange though, because and maybe that is the case because Zay Flowers went with the next pick, which would have made way more sense for their team.
Yeah, they almost certainly timed out because like you said, Zay Flowers makes so much more sense than Devontae there.
So team number 3 was the one that drafted Jalen Hurts in the first round. I mean, these teams should trade picks 14 and 15 because the Jalen Hurts team has
mutually beneficial.
Yeah, the Jalen Hurts team has Zay Flowers and the Lamar team has Devonta Smith with the way that it worked out. But it's Hurts, A.J. Brown, Goddard, Gainwell so they have 4 Eagles, and then they have Zay Flowers and Bateman. So I guess that's why they ended up taking Bateman, just to continue with the Baltimore trend. And then they took Likely late. So they have 3 Ravens, and they took J.K. Dobbins from us as a first-round running back, and they threw in Khalil Shakir in the 4th round. This team's a bit all over the place, it seems.
But it is, and that's what I'm talking. Good.
Yeah, but they have that like who are their running backs? Gainwell, and they took DeAndre Hopkins in the last round to have a Chiefs player. So they have Dobbins and Gainwell as their only 2 running backs.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. When you draft Eagles, it's really hard. It's really hard to find that running back pairing that makes sense for the Eagles because Derrick Henry is gone. If you pass on James Cook goes. So you're almost forced to do like Eagles Chiefs or do J.K. Dobbins like this guy did and set yourself up with an Eagles Chargers team. But it's really difficult, in my opinion, to build out Eagles teams in these contests.
So Patrick Mahomes was the 4th overall pick. So that team looks like they have Mahomes, Kelsey in the 3rd, Worthy in the 4th, Pacheco in the 5th, Hollywood Brown in the 6th. So they have their 5 Chiefs to start everything off. So they couldn't take any more Chiefs because they need to have players in the first round in order to get through. And they decided to draft Darnold, Hawkinson, and Naylor with Dalton Kincaid in the last round. And they have Saquon Barkley as well to play in the first round. That's
a really good team.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. I like that team quite a bit. I think Mahomes right now his ADP I think is like 8 or 9. I think Mahomes should be pick 4. Right where this guy took him. I think you can build out really solid teams with Mahomes, and it's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I mean, I just think it makes sense that he is the 4th player off the board.
So basically, you're hoping for Chiefs Super Bowl, and you have the Eagles covered, you have Minnesota covered, and I guess the Buffalo is just whatever. It's just an extra player to have in the first round. This team seems, unless the Vikings absolutely go mental and Barkley goes mental, the problem is this team probably doesn't get out of the first round. It's probably is 5 Chiefs too many?
So what's interesting about 5 Chiefs is if you get Chiefs Lions, like you have a pretty decent shot at like winning some serious money. But if it's Chiefs anybody else that is playing in the first round, you're probably not going to have a good enough team to compete for first place. But five's Chiefs thinking that okay, if it's Chiefs Lions, I have a good team. I don't think is crazy, but you are building like really soft first round teams. Like, you need this guy needs Jalen Naylor to put up points for him in the first round to help get through. It's a thin proposition.
That seems like a better strategy if you were playing like 100, 150 teams.
Exactly. You need to be firing a lot of drafts if that's the route that you're going to take sometimes.
So the final team, the team that picked before us with pick number 5, drafted, unfortunately, Jahmyr Gibbs directly in front of us. They go Gibbs Henry to start off. And they went with Josh Jacobs in the 4th round, too. They got a lot of running backs on this team.
Yeah.
So, but they paired Jamison Williams up. So they have 2 Detroit players in Gibbs and Jamison Williams. Did they take anyone else? No. And they took Ertz, McLaurin, and Jaden Daniels, round 6, 8, and 10. That's kind of nice as a little mini stack towards the end. They also stole Justin Herbert from us. They have Herbert with Quentin Johnston. Now, obviously, they don't have Lad McConkey because we took Lad McConkey earlier. They also have Jordan Addison with Josh Jacobs. This team's a bit all over the place. It feels like they're narrowly drawing to either Washington making it to the Super Bowl or Herbert making it to the Super Bowl, which is it's a tough scene.
You know what's funny is they did what we were trying to do, but with Washington beating the Bucks.
Yes.
Like they did Chargers Lions like we were trying to do, except they stacked up, they threw in Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs in there to basically kind of bully their way out of the first round with those points that they're hoping to get. But yeah, they went Lions Chargers with the Commanders advance rate team to kind of help get them through. It's kind of what we were trying to do.
It was, but they were missing the key piece of having the quarterback on the team favored to go to the Super Bowl.
That's the problem.
So I guess if the Chargers do get to the Super Bowl or Washington gets to the Super Bowl, this team looks really good. But I find this team feels like it might get to the Super Bowl and then has no chance of winning.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, you are going to be one of the best setup teams in the finals if you do take one of these long shot teams there. It's just not everybody has the volume to make it worth taking those long shots.
So Jordan Love goes undrafted in this format. Wow. CJ Stroud goes undrafted. Bo Nix goes undrafted. And so does Russell Wilson.
It makes sense to me, right? I mean, these are players that are going to be one of the lowest projected scoring quarterbacks in round 1. If you're building out Goff or Mahomes, I would much rather have, Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, Justin Herbert as opposed to these guys. You could maybe squint and see like a Jordan Love, superhero game like we saw last season. I just think that with Christian Watson hurt and the way that this offense is looked right now, it just doesn't seem possible that he does what he did last year against the Cowboys. And then Bo Nix, I actually can sort of make a case for. I think Bo Nix is playing some really good football. Bills are a really tough opponent in Buffalo, but I don't think Bo Nix as like an advanced rate quarterback is that crazy.
It's not, but I guess that team you would almost have to think about how these matchups go. That if you were drafting Bills, obviously you wouldn't draft Broncos. But if you had no Bills, maybe the Broncos would be a team to jump into. Like the Bucs are in a good spot with our Lions guys because there's no way the Bucs could play the Lions before the NFC Championship game. You wouldn't lose. Presumably you could advance all of them there and then get one of our teams through with the double stack on that side. We might be screwed in the AFC. We'll see. But at the same time, at least I know I could get everyone there. Let's say you only have 4 players in the finals. Like you just don't have the full complement. Obviously, you're not going to win because someone will have 5. Do you have any chance at good money if that's the case?
It really depends on what that Super Bowl matchup is. If it's Lions Chiefs, I think you are live for some pretty good money, or if it's a crazy matchup, like I don't know. Let's say the Texans. If the Texans find their way to the Super Bowl somehow, and you have the 4 highest scoring players, but you don't have that 5th complementary piece, you could still find your way to some serious cash. But I think that those are the only type of possibilities of making it worth your while.
So for us, with the way that our team worked out, optimally, it seems like Tampa Bay versus the Chargers would be perfect for us.
That would be crazy. This team would be super live if that happened.
Well, people can go draft their own teams right now, and it's filling up pretty quickly. It's almost at 70% full. So I'd recommend you use code Mayo right now. Get your deposit bonus. Go take that deposit bonus money and get yourself in the best ball drafts on Underdog for the NFL playoffs. Well, thank you for the time. Thanks for teaching me and the viewers about how to properly draft best ball teams and how to employ these strategies and reviewing these teams to see where we could have done better and where teams really did go wrong. Can you tell everyone, if they want to know more, where they can find you?
Yeah, so we're on the Badge Bros at YouTube. We are streaming every single day. We're covering every sport right now. We're doing football for the playoffs. We do NBA content as well. And then when baseball season comes around, we go hard in the baseball streets. Everything Underdog related for the draft streets as well as pick'ems. You can find over at the Badge Bros. Pat, thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. You can follow me at the PME. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast if audio is more your jam, on Apple, Spotify, and wherever, or on YouTube. Sub to the channel, smash like while you're here, and use code Mayo at Underdog right now to get that bonus of up to $1,000. Thank you all for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!